What if you purchased an old Corvette Stingray and then later found out that it didn't have all original parts? What if you were going to buy a Michael Jordan rookie card, 86 Fleer, maybe you had two PSA 5s sitting there and you're like, man, I'm excited to pick one of these two, but the dealer says, hey, I just want you to know that one of these two cards was soaked for 3 days in a solution. It was cleaned, if you will. Would you buy the cleaned card? And even if the answer is yes, would you pay the same price as the other one that's not cleaned? These are questions that we're going to talk about here today. Geoff Wilson brought his opinion on this last night, so we're going to react. And I consider Geoff one of my hobby friends, but man, I disagree with him on this one. And again, like I said, we're going to talk through many facets. We're going to deep dive a little bit here, my friends. So thanks very much for joining here today. Before we get started, we do have a big show coming on tomorrow. DPZ and Drake have episode 2 that will drop tomorrow, talking hobby talk, and they've got a lot of great talking points this week like they did last week. So definitely check that out. We've got our Friday shout outs, and we've got a new addition this week, Drip Shop Live, the go-to live shopping platform with trusted sellers and a die-hard community of collectors. If you're looking to upgrade your sports card collection or rip some of the hottest NFL, NBA, or MLB products, never been a better time to join. With my code down below, I'll have it in the video description as well as the pinned comments. You'll get up to $250 in credit to use immediately on their app, no minimum purchase. You can use this to shop in live selling streams for the hottest sealed products, slabs, and singles. Everything is going to be there on Drip, so definitely check out my links for that. VintageBreaks.com, always bringing the heat. You know they've got the vintage set breaks that they're going to bring out. They always have great bonuses and giveaways attached. Go to VintageBreaks.com and also check out their YouTube channel, Vintage Breaks. And they not only have great offerings on the vintage side, but also modern products as well. So everything in between, definitely check out Vintage Breaks. Wooten Sports Cards, our guys over at Wooten Sports Cards doing the thing on Whatnot. If you don't buy or sell on Whatnot that much, go and check out Wooten. That might actually change. Wooten Sports Cards has got a great channel over there where he's got a lot of amazing football, but he sells out just about every week. So don't waste time. Definitely check out Wooten Sports Cards. Last but not least, we have got Jay Duckett Cards on IG. I'll put a picture of his IG up. If you're a vintage card collector and you're thinking, man, I could really look to learn more about vintage non-sports, Jay is absolutely your guy. He can guide you through. Make sure to reach out to him on IG. He is a wealth of knowledge, and he's got a lot of these cards for sale. So he's a buy-sell trade guy. He's got a lot of this stuff for sale as well. So check out his inventory, a lot of vintage Disney. He's got vintage Alice in Wonderland. He's got all sorts of cool things. And again, I think that's a space that's got a lot of room for growth over time because there's a lot of historical IP that's attached to those vintage cards. So definitely check out Jay. And if you would like to see your eBay store, your Drip channel, your Whatnot channel, you've got auctions going off that you'd like to get some added exposure to, you got cards at the card show, reach out to me for a small fee. We will feature them on Tuesdays and Fridays for our shout outs. All right, as I said, Geoff Wilson, he talked about this on last night's episode. And he said, hey, this might be controversial, but I actually think that grading companies should change their tune, as PSA had come out recently and said, hey, no foreign substances on these cards. We are not accepting of this. And so Geoff came out and said, I wish that they would change their tune. I did a video going back a couple of days ago on this, and I said, look, I mean, kind of an obvious thing here for me, we're gonna really build on this, what I talked about a couple of days ago, but the obvious thing for me is we don't know what this stuff is going to look like 5 years, 10 years down the road. And we've seen instances, I mentioned Orlando, Collector's Dream. He's got a graded card where a stain is coming back on the back of it. So it's a graded card. I don't remember the grade, 4, 5, 6, let's just say. But it's probably a 1 or a 2 if the stain shows up, or it's got a stain qualifier. It's obviously not what it is in the slab, which of course creates a dilemma. It creates a problem. Now, maybe somebody just buys that card as a whatever grade it is and just doesn't, hey, well, I guess it's got a stain on it, but it got graded like that. But that doesn't feel great, does it? Eventually, that card will be sold down the line. Orlando's not selling it, but down the line somewhere, it'll move on to somebody else. And so I brought that up as, look, that's a potential issue. Okay, so that's one thing. There was an interview, actually caught this morning, that really helped me to research. Because I'm like, I want to research this topic more. I want to understand it a little bit better. There was an interview where Kurt was actually on Sports Card Madness podcast here this morning. I watched it, and there was a few key takeaways. I just want to kind of throw out facts that were shared here in this interview, straight from the horse's mouth, straight from Kurt. I understand there's a lot more cleaners than just Kurt, but we're going to focus on this for just right this second in the video. So Kurt mentioned in the video he has 17,000 customers. 17,000 customers, and he's got distributors globally. So this is not a small niche company. This is a guy that's been doing it. He said he perfected it about 10 years ago. I don't know when he actually started his business. I missed that part. I think it was actually around the pandemic time. I could be wrong on this. But anyway, regardless, he perfected this for himself going back about 10 years ago. The other part that I learned here that he said was, we don't know what's in the solution. We don't know what's in the Kurt's Card Care solution. But, I was thinking, well, hell, maybe it's just water, or maybe it's just something really basic. He said, kind of like a songwriter that writes 1,000 songs, he built this thing, this solution over time, tried different things. Some things worked, some things didn't. And so this is something that he has formulated himself, kind of proprietary type, formula. So this isn't like, according to what he's saying here, this isn't like, bleach thrown in with water with some lemon juice poured in with some, eagle's beak or whatever sprinkled in the potion. No, I mean, this is something that he worked on for a while, and it's not just water or, there is more to it clearly than just that. He also said that he's worked on huge cards. He included Honus Wagner, 52 Topps Mantle, MJ rookie cards. He was talking about all of these types of cards. So it's not as if he's just worked on, a few things here and there, random stuff. He's worked on some big cards. When I listen to him talk, he is about restoring, kind of like a detailer details a car. That's the way I'm taking it. He doesn't strike me as someone that's trying to be nefarious in any way. I said that in the other video too. And I think for a lot of these card cleaners, they take pride in kind of making a card look great. I don't think they view it as this is some sort of a horrible thing. Again, I know people will take this personally that might use the product, and this isn't a knock on anybody. We're just talking about the issues. We're debating stuff, and this is to me, this is a big hobby issue. I think for some people, they're like, I don't really understand the big deal. And at first I was kind of like, well, maybe it's not. But then as I started to think more on it and think, maybe I'm overthinking it. But the more I think about it, the more I kind of research and listen, it's more and more of a concern for me. And we'll kind of keep going. And I'm not any sort of hobby purist. I hate virtue signaling. I hate people that come out and say like, this is the way that you have to collect. And this is what, and I think people will say this, oh, you're just hating. You're hating. I'm actually concerned though. I'm concerned though, because what I'm hearing and what I'm seeing is there's a lot of focus around the seller here in this whole transaction. And I hear a narrative here too that's like, oh, this is all about the collectors and we're making this better for the collector. I don't think this is making it better for end collectors or speculators, investors, or whatever you're calling yourself. I know that it's making it better for someone that's selling right now, trying to maximize money right now. I know that is the person that benefits here. What I don't know is what that looks like for the end consumer. I'll bring up Orlando again, who had the card that had a gum stain on it that was cleaned off, and the gum stain came back. Is he better off now? Was that for him? Was that for the collector? Because I'm not seeing it like that. The example I used in the beginning of the video, and I want to hear comments on this. Please comment on this down below, because I want to know, am I just an idiot that is just like missing it here?
School's closed. It's a holiday, you dumbasses.
Whoa.
But if I have a Michael Jordan rookie card is a card that I want, so I'm using that as an example. Down at some point, I would love to own one. 86 Fleer Jordan rookie card. I don't need a 10. I don't need a 9. And hell, after hearing all this, I'm definitely not worried about getting an 8, 9, or a 10. And we'll talk about more about that later. But if you have 2 5s sitting in front of you, Jordan rookie, Mantle, vintage, any vintage card, it's a 5. You've been saving up for it. And you know that one of them has been soaked for 3 days or had something worked out on it, and one didn't, I have to believe that 9 times out of 10, you're going with the one that hasn't been touched. But we don't have that sort of transparency here in this scenario. If there was full transparency, if this was something where it was easily detectable, like, okay, this is a restored copy, we would know that. In comic books, a restored copy lowers the price. It lowers the price of the book. But some might kick back at me, hey, but the restored in comic books, that's an alteration. Someone's added paint or someone's altered that book, and that's why it's a restored copy. But I have to go back to what PSA said. They said that if they are able to detect it, that they would consider it altered. That's what they said. So you might be using the word restoration, but the grading company, the number one grading company, just said that they're considering it altered. They're not considering it restored or anything. They're straight up said altered in their statement. The other piece to this, and especially let's really focus in on vintage cards, when people are buying into a historical card, because vintage cards, most of us never saw Mickey Mantle play baseball. Most. Even the folks that are collecting that are big into Mantle never saw him play. They are collecting the history of the game. They are collecting the history. They are collecting the legend that is Mickey Mantle. And then, of course, if we look at a lot of these 50s baseball cards, they weren't short printed. But what's cool about it is which ones survived and which ones actually survived in good shape without any sort of touch-ups or without any sort of trimming. Even though cleaning is not trimming, it still kind of falls in that same sort of philosophy of like, hey, I want the card exactly how it was. I want it came out of a pack at some point, and over time, it had its journey, and it is now what it is. And if that's a 4, then it's a 4. If it's a 7, it's a 7. Tell me what would happen if you had big money folks. Let's say, okay, the 52 Topps Mantles, the SGC 9.5, the biggest ones, the SGC 9.5, and there's 3 PSA 10s that exist. So there's 4 of them. If people knew, if it was common knowledge, transparent, that let's just say one of those was trimmed or it was cleaned. Now, I know that, cleaning is not the same as trimming, but do you think that someone would pay the same amount of money for it if it was cleaned? If it was soaked for 3 days? Do you think that they would if that was part of the description, on the auction? I don't think so. And maybe they would pay more for the clean one than they would the trimmed one. But would they pay maximum dollar? I don't believe so. Now, Nat Turner bought a PMG green Jordan going back 5-6 years ago. He bought it for $350,000. Bargain shopping back then. And he didn't care that it was altered at all because he just wanted the damn card because there's only, 10 of them. There's only so many of them. So he did not care at all if it was altered. But it was transparent there. It was like, okay, this card has been messed with. And I think that that's something that this is not ever going to be like that. We're never, and there's so much volume happening, and there's already been so much volume that's been cleaned in some fashion. It's never going to be to where we can see like, okay, this one was restored / cleaned or whatever. So now I ask you, what's going to be an unintended consequence from all of this? Kurt's Card Care business is booming. He's got 17,000 customers. It's building. And maybe he does a great job. Maybe it's all good. Maybe that solution is fine. And maybe it never affects the card at all over time. And maybe, who knows, maybe it's all fine. But you don't think that other people are going to try to do this? They're seeing this guy's getting a ton of cards. You don't think that other people are going to try to create their own solutions? And so then how many different card doctors, card solution people do we have, cleaners do we have? And do we really think that cards over time, of a significant amount of cards, won't show effects of this over time? Again, I talked about, there's short-term gratification that's happening here where you can make a 3 into a 5. You can make a 4 into a 6. Or maybe you can make a 6 into a 10. Who knows? And it might be a vintage card, it might be a modern card, whatever. But what happens if over time we start seeing cards have problems? Or those initial problems, the cleaning agent wears off or whatever, and now you can see it. And so now, and it could very well be that 10, 15, 20 years down the road, we have a circumstance where we have graded cards that look weird. And that maybe there's a name for it. Flawed graded cards or something like, hey, something is up with this card. It's showing up now. From before they graded it, there's something that was done to it, got it looking nice, it got graded, and now 15, 20 years later, something's off with this thing. So then I ask, does it then add more value to the lower? I always said like, hey, I'm fine having, for vintage cards, I'm fine with rounded corners because I know it wasn't trimmed. I'm fine with it being a little bit beat up because that's what it's supposed to be. It's supposed to be that. So I'm fine buying 1s and 2s of 3s of very, very important cards. But I wonder, in 20 years, are those going to be more wanted because they're looked at as like, hey, that's a real friggin' card. That's not a card where they, threw a boob job on it and they threw lipstick and, they worked it all up. And now over time, you're looking back and you got some regrets. Think about it, guys. Could this be an end scenario for this? And I know a lot of people are going to be like, you're an idiot. You don't know what you're talking about. This is all great. It's all great for people that are out here making a bunch of money doing it. You know, it's all great now because a lot of people don't think long term. Most people think short term. They just do. They're worried about today. They're worried about next week. They're worried about, a year from now. They're not focused on unintended consequences. And like I said, maybe I'm completely wrong. Maybe all this stuff is going to work out perfectly well, but I can see a few different scenarios where it does not work out well. And so I really, really hope. What do I want to see happen? And so I'm actually going to go against what Geoff had said about embracing this, and actually the other way. I hope that grading companies set up better R&D processes to where, hey, look, we need to figure out what this is. We need to just technology, more and more technology. And Nat Turner's a tech guy. There's a lot of tech guys in this space, and it's just about knowing. Look, it's not to say you disqualify all these cards, maybe you just say, hey, it's marked with a restored. This card has been restored. It hasn't been altered. Maybe it's been restored. PSA came out and said altered. Maybe they call it restored. But having some sort of technology, a scanner that comes down on it and, marks it as like, hey, something was on this card. And look, maybe it's going to take time to do that. But again, maybe eventually we'll get the ultimate kind of grading, sort of like the ultimate case. It's like, your card has been like completely scanned and looked through with also humans, to get you kind of that best possible result. This is where I think, look, if you're, within this hobby, we have these hobby companies that are always looking for improvements. Well, here's one staring you right in the face. I think it's just more about transparency. If a car's been cleaned, fine. But I would like to know that. I would like to know that as a buyer, as a long-term holder, as a collector, because I keep on hearing this is all about the collector, and this is about making these cards beautiful. They're supposed to be beautiful. I actually look at it differently. If I'm buying a card from 1950, I want it exactly how it was and how it's been over time from 1950. I don't want to work on it to make it look beautiful. I don't. That's just me personally, just some dork in his house making videos. But that's just where I'm at with it. I'm not any sort of like hobby purist or anything, but I fall a little bit more conservative on this particular topic. It's kind of like I think I heard someone say like it's a progressive movement in the hobby. The word progressive, it implies progress when in a lot of ways it's going in the wrong direction. So again, I think that we just take another look at this, think a little bit more on it. A week ago, I wasn't thinking as hard on this topic, but this is why I love the hobby. You get into debate, you hear about some other thing, you hear of other people talking about it, you take in information, and you come up with your own ideas on this. And that's basically what I've done here in this case. So we will have to see what happens, my friends, but I hope that you all stay well, stay healthy, stay awesome, and I will talk to you again later.